Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Gigi Report. Glad you're tuned in. This is your host, Godfrey Gichuki. I want to welcome you to this particular edition today. I believe you're going to find the conversation absolutely interesting, stimulating. We are going to be talking about the loss of faith in our national institutions. And we're going to look at a legal response to that. Now, I have a special guest on the show, Dr. Linda Musumba. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Pastor Gigi.
Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by just describing where we are. Our nation is witnessing a growing skepticism and or loss of faith in our socio-cultural, political and economic institutions, and coupled with this is an endless stream of reports of state corruption in all sectors of our society, and especially at the state level, and that kind of is probably behind the reason, the rationale for skepticism and loss of faith. But we're going to look at that. So our role in this particular episode is to explore that particular issue and ask ourselves, why are our people losing faith in national institutions? So welcome to the Gigi Report. As always, the Gigi Report is a platform where we dive into big, bold, honest conversations on a broad range of subjects, socio-economic, philosophical, political, theological, issues on a broad, broadly in that category. And today we're going to go into the legal, political matters. And very good. So please remember to share. Share with your friends. Those of you that are watching on Facebook, Elevate TV Kenya, YouTube, we are on Elevate TV Kenya. Please share widely and let's get the conversation going. Before we begin, we dive into the conversation, I want to introduce my guest on the set today. Is my guest, Dr. Linda Musumba. Dr. Linda Musumba is the founding dean of Kenyatta University School of Law, and she's an advocate at Dr. Linda Musumba and Co-Advocate. She's an entrepreneur and a lecturer, but you've slowed down on the lecturing bit, as you told me off the set. Dr. Linda graduated from the University of Birmingham in the UK with PhD in law in 2007, and her interests include constitutional and election law, gender and human rights. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pastor Gigi.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin right away, and so we'll begin with your early career development and what inspired you to pursue law and to take it all the way to a very advanced level.
Thank you, Pastor Gigi. First of all, let me say I'm very excited to be here. I'm delighted to be on this show.
Yes.
To share what I know. With respect to what inspired me to do law, it's very interesting because I didn't set out, having law in mind as a target, but rather it happened on me in the sense that when we were in school, those days, of course, they gave you the clusters for the different subjects.
Yes.
And when I looked at the clusters for the science-based courses, I realized that I wasn't strong in chemistry and physics because of the mathematics element.
Yes.
I was not good in maths.
Yes.
So when I looked at the clusters now on the arts side,
Yes.
I realized that, okay, so the cluster for law had CRE, that I can do something there. It has Kiswahili, I can redouble my efforts there, English, and then it also had history, and then it had and mathematics, because mathematics was actually part of all the clusters.
Okay.
So then I realized that, okay, you've been telling yourself you're not good in maths,
Yes.
but now mathematics is part of all the clusters.
Yes.
So you must therefore, work hard at it. So I asked my mother to buy me all the books from Form 1 to Form 3 for mathematics. And I took my time to go through these books meticulously
Right.
to raise my game in mathematics.
Okay.
And I'm just glad to say I succeeded. But now that is what led me to do law. So it wasn't because I had any passion about it or any interest. It was just the thing to do because of where my strengths lay.
Yes.
But I think God leads you in along paths in a divine way.
Yes.
Because then it ended up being what I really love to do.
Okay.
So then of course I went and did my law at the University
Of
of Nairobi.
Yes.
That was 4 years, and then the School of Law. We also went through the program at the School of Law, of course the pupillage that you do in an advocate's office, and then graduated.
Yes.
So, and even as at the time I was graduating, I didn't know what am I going to do after this. Do I want to be a courtroom lawyer? What kind of a lawyer do I want to be?
Yes.
I didn't know. So when I went to clear at the office where I was doing my pupillage,
Yes.
I met a senior advocate,
Yes.
who we were in the same building with, and I was so fearful of her and respectful of her because she's my senior by so far. We met in the lift, and on that day she asked, because she had not seen me for a couple of days, so I thought, oh, she even knows that I exist. So then she asked me, so have you finished? And I said yes. And she said, are you interested in NGO type of things? And I said, well, I don't know, but I could give it a try. So she said, I've seen an advertisement for this, and for a job at the League of Kenya Women Voters. Why don't you apply? And so I applied, and subsequently I was successful at it,
Yes.
and found myself on that path.
All right.
It was again not something that I had thought, had ever even thought of or ever interacted with, because civil society organizations in the area of human rights and democracy were just becoming something that was known at that time, in the late 90s.
Yes.
Of course, it came hot on the struggles of the, Matibas, the Rubias, and the death of Ouko, so things were beginning to open up.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in the League of Kenya Women Voters.
Okay.
So it was there in the League of Kenya Women Voters that I interacted with people who are my mentors and still are my mentors today. One
Yes.
being Professor Wanjiku Kabira.
Right.
She was deeply involved in the struggle for the new constitution at that time.
Yes.
Because
yes,
you'll
yes.
remember that His Excellency, the late President Moi,
Yeah.
had of course acceded to the change in the constitution, and therefore had come up with the statute that was to pave way
Yes.
for the new constitution. So there were talks beginning to take place between government institutions, civil society organizations, a whole new breath of fresh air.
Yes.
And
yes.
so one day, as I was sat,
there's something you've said.
Yes,
and
please.
I don't want to lose it.
Yes, please.
That President Moi had begun to put in place some kind of legal structures that would help later on to change the constitution.
Yes.
But we don't give him credit for that. We just think this was a big tyrant who we successfully got rid of. And so I just thought to slide that in, but go on with the rest of the discussion.
Thank you. So during that period, because I joined the League of Kenya Women Voters in 1998.
Yes.
This was shortly after being admitted to the bar.
Yes.
So in that 1998, because there were discussions that had begun between government and non-government actors, and the Attorney General at the time was Honorable Amos Wako.
Okay.
So he had begun, of course, bridging this divide between all the different actors.
Yes.
I saw an article that had been done by Professor Kibwana in the newspaper.
All right.
About the new constitution and what it would mean for Kenyans.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, okay, being in an organization that is a women's organization, I thought, well, why don't I write something and show it to my immediate boss at the time, and now write an article about the constitution with reference to women's to the women's position, how women are placed.
Yes.
So I wrote that paper, gave it to my immediate boss, who then said that she would bring it to the attention of the Women's Caucus, because women's organizations began to come together as well.
Okay.
Under one umbrella, so that they could be able to become stronger in articulating their issues.
Yes.
So I gave it to her, and then we presented this to these caucuses, and it's from that point that I think my journey in one direction began, in the sense that I found that I was good at writing and analyzing.
And that's very actually what people, some of the people, viewers, you might know that you still write in the Nation. Do you still? I saw your article the other day in the Nation paper. So
This one in the Nation recently is let me say it's like a one-off, but I used to write for the Standard before.
Oh, okay.
I used to write continuously for us for some time.
All right,
For the
okay.
Standard, you know, some time in the past.
all right.
Yeah. So I realized that I was good at writing, and so I became, you know, quite useful in that area. Now, on behalf of the organization I was working in,
Yes.
that's the resource that we're able to give to the Women's Caucus, supporting, you know, our seniors who are, you know, actively on the front line.
Yes.
You know, though that I was just a, you know, a young girl.
Yes.
And obviously very much green.
Yes.
But, you know, able to put things together.
Right.
So in the back office,
Yes. Yes.
I began to write those things. And I think, Pastor Gigi, I would just like to let your viewers know that, you know, things, a good thing has a place from where it starts.
Yes.
Because I see young people today, you do, like for example, you sing songs.
Yes.
You sing one song and then you think you're at the top of the league.
Yes.
And in fact, you stop singing songs. And you want to ride on the crest of the one song you sang.
Yes.
And you see, that doesn't take you far, because you have to continue to produce content and
true.
become better at it.
Exactly.
I think your viewers, Pastor Gigi, know Mr. Bean.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Bean. Yes.
You know, the famous you know,
The
cartoon
famous-
character.
Yes, yes.
If you look at Mr. Bean's history, I mean,
Yes.
this guy has been doing comedy from, and he's an engineer. I think you're aware of that. From the time he began to do comedy, he's done it repeatedly over years. We have got many videos of Mr. Bean.
Yes.
To the point where today he can sit back
Yes.
and not have to do anything,
Yes.
and just simply rely on royalties he gains from the work he's done for so long. So, Pastor Gigi, I'm trying to say to our young people and young viewers watching this program, that if you're going to be good at something,
Yes.
you have to do the 10,000 hours. They say 10,000 hours, I think.
Absolutely,
yeah?
yes. 10,000 hours. You have to put in that.
Yes.
Yes.
So when you're told, for example, as a young person,
Yeah.
you are told to go for an internship somewhere, and you're told go and buy milk at the kiosk, photocopy this paper. You know, you think to yourself, you know, I'm not going to do that. I am a young advocate.
Yes.
Why am I being sometimes that is part of
the learning process.
So I was in the back office,
yes,
writing, you know, these papers and this, doing this analysis and learning from, you know, those who are ahead of me.
Yes.
Learning from them. And it didn't take me long, Pastor Gigi, to realize that Professor Kabira, Professor Jacqueline Odwall, and others who were there at the time spoke a language I didn't speak.
Yes.
They were able to look at things in a way and interpret those things, analyze those things, criticize them.
Yes.
In a way that I could not.
Right.
So I was good at being able to look at, for example, you know, this text, that text, you know, put it together.
Yes.
But there's something that was lacking.
Yes.
And so I wanted to speak that language that was being spoken by my seniors.
Absolutely.
I wanted to speak that language.
And that's how
that's when I realized I have to go and
study.
I have to get the opportunity to do my master's.
Okay.
And so again, I thank God that for the 2 years that I worked with, you know, under the aegis of these senior people and in that organization, and just cutting my my graft, you know, in the back office there,
yes,
gave me the opportunity to be able to get a Chevening scholarship to go to do my master's, as you indicated, in the UK.
Yes.
I went and did my master's, and then I realized I'm still not speaking like they're speaking.
Yes, yes.
You know, there's some words and there's a way you look at, like someone just gives you an idea.
Yes.
And then because your tools of analysis and your ability to be able to see beyond what is just in front of you,
yes,
I still felt I'm not able to do that the way that I see them doing.
Right.
And I said, so that means that now I have to do the PhD.
Absolutely.
So you see, Pastor Gigi, I didn't set out to do, you know, like these things. They happened on me, and one thing led to another.
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing the PhD.
Yeah.
And in the areas where you talked about, I first started to do the PhD in the area of women's, you know, the way women were, you know, interacting with the constitutional review process.
Yes.
Because when I left Kenya at the time, things were just getting hotted up, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So after doing that for 2 years, I decided to change.
Yes.
The topic. And instead decided to look at constitutional review processes from two perspectives.
Yes.
I looked at 3 constitutional review processes that were guided by a framework. That is the constitutional review process of South Africa, There was Eritrea, which had also gone through a similar type of process, and Uganda.
Okay.
Those had, already pre-planned frameworks that were put in place, legal frameworks
Yes.
to guide. Then I also looked at 3 processes
Yes.
that were spontaneous.
Yes.
You'll remember the Velvet Revolution, these ones that took place in Ukraine, Kyrgyzstan, as well as Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, they happened at the same time, in those countries that were in the former Soviet Union.
Yes.
So it was very interesting for me, Pastor Gigi, studying a place that we had never studied that in our history.
Yes.
Those countries.
Yes.
So it was now, first of all, to look on the map and see where are these countries, because they came to the limelight
Yes.
because of those people revolutions where, for example, people marched onto the streets, sat on the square in Ukraine and decided that, the elections that had taken place, they were not satisfactory and they wanted a change.
Yes.
So they got changes.
Yes.
They changed.
Yes.
And so after that spontaneous process,
Yes.
that's when now they start to look for a constitution.
Yes.
But these processes inevitably in the end, Pastor Gigi, and to viewers out there,
Yeah.
again, all suffered
Yes.
from structural weaknesses
Yes.
that led again to
More
the
conflict.
collapse.
Yeah.
So what I was looking at, I hope that the viewers understand, processes that are led by frameworks and those that come from spontaneous processes,
Yes.
where now let's say, we succeeded.
Yes.
For example, we all decide to march to KICC and sit there.
Yes.
And then, by a stroke of luck, we didn't expect it.
Yes.
Government falls.
Yes.
And that's when we start to say, okay, so this has happened.
Now-
Now who's going to be the prime minister? Who's going to be the president? Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you see, the danger with that is that there's so many things that can go wrong because you haven't talked about even the kind of country that you want.
Exactly.
But when you use a framework where
Yes.
you're able to, first of all, say, the Kenya that we want
Yes.
is a Kenya that is this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
The people who are going to participate in making this constitution
Yeah.
are the following people. We must take into account this, that, and the other.
Yes.
And that's what led us to get the 2010 constitution.
Yes.
So my involvement in the 2010 constitution
Yeah.
was up to that point where I had been playing a back role,
Yes.
a back office role for the, in the women's organization.
Yes.
And then went to study.
All right. All right.
So when I came back, it was just again shortly before the 2010
because you
constitution.
finished in 2007.
Yes.
And you told me you came back right away.
Yes.
So you kind of came back and immersed yourself, and here you are. You've studied constitutional making. You have a very good grip of a structured approach and a spontaneous approach, and you've looked at all those and the outcomes, and perhaps the structured approach might give us something better,
Yes.
because we have the time and the space to articulate and argue. That's the other thing about the whole idea of conversations. You see, if our nation is going to become better, I think we must accept the idea that we must have these forums where things are argued out, because it is when I hear you, and you may have a very contrary view to my view, when I hear you and then you hear me, somehow we are likely to arrive at something that is a kind of a much better position. Because it takes your view, it takes my view, and the view of everybody. Yeah. So
absolutely.
That's wonderful. I like that story. I think that's very, very inspiring. So, and I think you have even answered the other thing I wanted to raise, the issue of your experience in constitutional law and where we are as a nation. So maybe we can just talk about what happened after the 2010. Okay, so here you are. We know the process, the bombers of Kenya and all that, and all the framework, and then we had a constitution. So tell us a little bit about that and what I have heard you mention as a watershed moment for Kenya.
Okay. Maybe I think, Pastor, it's important also maybe just to talk about something interesting that happened, is that when I came back in
Yes.
that I came back to Kenya in 2007.
Yes.
I went through a process of feeling dislocated.
Uh-huh.
Because remember, I had gone from a period before I left for studies,
Yes.
where I was deeply when things happen, I was there.
Yes.
I was part of what was going on. And so when I came back, I assumed that I would just come back and reclaim my space, within this movement. And now that I'm able to speak like my mentors,
Yes.
now I'm just going to simply come in, and it didn't actually happen that way.
Right.
It really was very shocking to me how life had moved on.
Yes.
Nobody had kept my space for me. So I then, found myself again in a situation where I thought to myself, what I want to do with my PhDs, I want to do consultancies, I want to do research. And then one of my family members said, I've seen an advertisement at Kenyatta University.
Yes.
They're advertising for lecturers at the School of Law.
Yes.
So I decided to, they pushed me. It was not my intention to, because remember, I did not intend to join the university.
Right.
But they said, for what it's worth, apply.
Yes.
So I did apply, and I got the opportunity. Because of course I've never taught in a university.
Yes.
As I was, preparing to be led, because Professor Kibwana again.
Yes.
Was going to be the dean.
Okay.
At that School of Law.
Yeah.
And then he got the opportunity to become an advisor to President Kibaki, and he said to me, Linda, I think you can do it. And I said, no, but I've never done this before.
Yes.
I've never done this before. So then it became a moment like where when Elijah was going up
Yes.
into the heavens,
Yes.
on that, I think he was on a chariot.
Yes.
And then his clock, fell
Yes.
on Elisha.
Yes.
And it dawned on Elisha that now he was the new Elijah.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So all these things happened so quickly. I got immersed in the university. It was a very interesting experience where I learned a lot. I appreciated, and I continue to appreciate, the students, the management, the support that I received in setting up a new School of Law.
Right.
So meaning that I was not involved
Yeah.
in the constitutional review process just prior to 2010 actively.
Yes.
But I wrote, things, but I was not an active player because, as I said, my space was not there. I had no entry point. I had no entry point to participate in any way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I truly appreciate the people that played an active role.
Yes.
In ensuring that they reached the lengths and the breadths of this country.
Yes.
Because those reports were online.
Yes.
For everybody to see.
Yes.
When they went to the grassroots.
Yes.
To initiate conversations. I've also spoken to some of the commissioners, both in the Guy Commission, then came to Abida Ali, and then came to the Committee of Experts, which was led by the late Nzamba Kitonga. And the kind of work that was done just to have that national conversation.
Yes.
And remember, we borrowed a lot from South Africa, yeah?
Oh, okay.
This process that we were enacting is what had taken place in South Africa.
Okay.
So this awakening, this moment of, saying that the public must be involved, we had seen it in South Africa. Uganda had put it in practice when they came up with their Constituent Assembly. And now we were now enacting this new way of governance where the people become involved. The words at the time were people-driven, people-centered.
Yes.
Process. Those were the words that were
Those are the mantras.
Yes, people-centered.
People-centered.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
And then we of course had the promulgation. There was of course the referendum to pass the constitution, because remember, originally the referendum was not built into the process.
Okay.
You remember the Reverend Joya took the case to court.
Yes.
And the court said, and the judgment was by Justice Ringera, who said that definitely if you're going to have a major change to the constitution, people need to directly be able to have a say in it.
Okay.
And so they enhanced the referendum.
Okay, so actually that's a very interesting thing, an observation, because and I'm glad we are speaking about these issues so that we can form the background of now then addressing the issue of the skepticism.
Yes.
Because I think there's a gap, there's something missing in the conversation, that even the referendum wasn't part of the structured constitution or whatever.
Yes, it
was going to happen, back office,
yes.
And then the paper is drawn and then signed off, and maybe a ceremony. And the referendum was not inbuilt until somebody actually saw, no.
Yes.
That's missing in the equation.
Yes.
And it came in, like you described.
Absolutely.
Okay. That was very interesting.
Yeah. So then we went to the referendum.
Yeah.
And of course, people voted for the constitution, and it was at about 60-40.
Yes.
60-40 basis.
Yes.
There are those who did who are
40%
the no category, which was opposed because of the question of the Qadhi's courts.
Yes.
And also opposed because of the question of abortion.
Yes,
if you
so the
recall.
church actually ended up
Yes.
on the no side.
On the no side.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it did that actually in 2005 as well. On the other,
Yes.
the other, was it also a constitution? Yeah, it was a constitutional referendum.
There was a referendum at the time as well.
Yeah, so
Yes.
the church has always found itself on the no. So maybe how
Maybe
come?
this time round it might be different. Huh?
All right.
Yeah, so of course there was that, but then at the end of the day, the majority of people voted for the constitution.
Yes.
And Pastor Gigi, you said that you wanted us to even look at what this meant for the country.
Exactly.
If you compare the 2010 constitution and the constitution before 2010,
Yes.
you'll realize that the constitution before 2010 forms a big part of the 2010 constitution.
Yes.
Only that it has been enhanced.
Yes.
The Bill of Rights has been enhanced tremendously in the 2010 constitution, where you've got new additions.
Yes.
For example, you've got the socio-economic rights that were not there
In the previous.
in the previous constitution.
Yes.
You have clauses that pertain to land
Yes.
in this new constitution, which were not there in the other one. You have protections that go towards, significant protections going towards things like fair trial. Of course, fair trial was there before,
Yeah.
but much more enhanced now, where the courts have got the capacity to be able to go back in time if new matters come up, where an injustice had taken place.
Yes.
Then you've got new rights that came up, for example, the right to information in the 2010 constitution, which we didn't have before, access to information, and a number of others that,
including a very surprising one that, and maybe you can confirm,
Yes.
that say, for example, even in the cases of murder, charges of murder, that you can actually get bail.
Yes, that is something that came post, with the new constitution.
Yes.
The right to bail
Yes.
for all, categories of
All
offenses.
categories of offenses are
Yes,
available.
that also came with the 2010 constitution.
Okay.
Although now, of course, some variations have come as a result of some court decisions,
Yes.
especially when it comes to terrorism, and so you have some, slight,
Modifications.
that have been made
Yeah.
in the interest of ensuring that, the country keeps running and is safe.
Absolutely. So I'm going to stop you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
I'm going to slow you down. Viewers, I'm sure you're enjoying and following this conversation as it's going on. I'm just letting Linda just share with us all this wonderful background information, because if we're going to answer that question of why there is a rising skepticism among young people in particular, and you see a lot of it in the social media, people are really so skeptical. They don't trust government. They don't trust maybe even the court. Okay, you hear people saying the only institution we trust is now the Supreme Court, because they prove themselves, and everybody else is corrupt. You can't trust them. So I think that's what we want to speak into. But this background information, I hope, is really clarifying for us what changed and that watershed moment, right? So, leader, we're going to go into a break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, we want to now address ourselves. So we bequeathed ourselves a constitution, which came along with major institutional changes, including creating like 11, constitutional institutions.
Yes. The chapter 15.
The chapter 15
Yes,
constitutions.
yes.
Yeah. So and it is a whole list of institutions that were created and now embedded in the current constitution. So we'll talk about that, which they are, and then how that all shapes up, and then why we would now have the kind of background noise that I hear. All right. So we're going to a short break. So don't go away. Stay on this conversation, and please remember to share. We are coming back to this, and I tell you, you don't want to miss the next part of this conversation. All right. See you shortly.
There are so many things that ladies are doing to be on top, to be seen. You have the slay queens and what have you.
Yeah.
What really sets such people apart so that they can be called out amongst the crowd, yet we don't have the scandal? So what sets them apart?
Staying true to yourself, managing your expectations, create networks before you send that resume. Volunteer somewhere before you send that resume. I know it's a cliche, but as easy as it sounds, it works. It honestly does.
Welcome back to the show. I believe that you're enjoying this conversation. We're talking about lost faith in national institutions, a legal response. We're looking at growing skepticism, I guess maybe fueled by so many, issues that are going on in our constitutional order. And we have so far provided a background to where we are from a constitutional and a legal point of view. And now we're going to go into the nitty-gritties and try to answer that key question. So, Dr. Linda, we've described the background,
yes,
where we're coming from, and how we ended up with the 2010 Constitution.
Yes.
And you snuck in a couple of very interesting things, including the fact that the referendum wasn't in the, in the main, kind of like in the main part of the structured approach.
Yes.
But it came in, and then which then still, helped reshape the conversation.
Yes.
But we are glad that we eventually had this Constitution.
Absolutely.
And that was a watershed moment.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the institutions. We've talked about kind of the differences between the old and the new. But let's talk about the institutions that were created and why they were created. And then answer the question is, why would we then now have kind of like skepticism and misgivings about some of these institutions, while we actually created all of them and they're embedded in the Constitution? Why are they not working? So I've asked many questions in one, but
yes,
now you know where to maneuver. All right.
Okay. Pastor Gigi, you'll recall that one key institution that was formed at the time,
yeah,
and was formed for a period of 5 years, was the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution.
Yes.
That's how orderly the plan was.
Yes.
That let's put in place, an institution whose role will be to oversee the transition from the old Constitution to the new, because it was a massive transition.
Yes.
So you have an institution, an independent institution,
yes,
ensuring that the offices that need to be set up are actually set up, ensuring that the resources that were supposed to get to different places to make sure that this works do get there, monitoring that the transitional clauses that were put in the new Constitution are actually ticked off one by one.
Yes.
So that was one institution, very important role. At the same time, within Parliament, a similar institution was also to be set up, as one of the committees of Parliament, to work hand in hand with the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution,
yes,
to make sure that the legislation,
yes,
that needs to be put in place also is done. The same thing happens.
Yeah.
You have another institution that was also there for a period of time, was the transitional. Was it called the Transitional Authority? Transitional Authority.
Yes.
Which was to ensure that now the same sorts of preparations and arrangements were taking place in the counties.
Okay.
Because remember that a major introduction,
yes,
into the new Constitution was the devolved system of government.
Exactly.
So that now you went from the 8 provinces and several districts to now 47 counties,
yes,
and national government,
yes,
and then wards.
Yes.
So you're looking at a situation where the infrastructure,
yes,
that is required to enable, that was massive work that had to be done. To open accounting, accounting instruments for the counties to be able to work. Which officer was to be where were the first employees to be employed? How was it to be done?
Yes.
So there was a lot of preparations that had to be done. And again, that was also an institution that was there for a time.
Yeah.
Then you have those that were to carry on. For example, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Yes.
Which again, you know, Kenyans, remembering the history,
Yes.
where they came from,
Yes.
with, you know, people being, you know,
being locked
detentions
up,
detentions without trial and those sorts
Exactly.
of things.
Yes.
And just never wanting to go back to that kind of a past. That's why you have the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to also keep a check
Yes.
on the implementation of the human rights that were now, you know, very well, you know, listed and outlined in
Yes.
the 2010 Constitution.
Okay.
You then also have the National Gender Equality Commission to also ensure matters of equality.
Yes.
Remember, women went into this
Yes.
on the platform of gender equality.
Yes.
Persons with disability also looking for equality. Then marginalized persons and minorities also wanting to be included. So you have the National Gender and Equality Commission, which is there to ensure that matters equality are actually being looked at. And you remember you have the Article 27 in the Constitution, which is about equality.
Yes.
It is the one that requires that there is not more than 2/3 of either gender
Yes.
in appointive and elective positions.
Positions, yes.
So you,
and important to clarify, appointive and elective.
yes,
So if someone is being appointed, wherever there is an appointive position,
Yes.
That 2/3, you know, equation needs to be looked at.
Yes.
And wherever there is elective,
Yes.
then the elective bit I know is where we have had problems. The
we had
arguments are-
problems with the appointive as well, Pastor Gigi, and in fact, the first case that went to court was regarding the appointment of the judges of the Supreme Court. If you recall, there were 5, you know, men appointed, and 2 women. Was it 6 men and 1 woman, or 5 men and 2 women? I think it was 5 men and 2 women.
Yes.
Because you had Justice Njoki Ndungu, and then you also had Justice Nancy Baraza
Okay.
as the 2 ladies who were in the Supreme Court, the first appointments.
Yeah, yes.
And the matter was taken to court by FIDA, where then the judges said that, you know, this is, as much as Article 27 says the not more than 2/3 ought to be implemented, they said it's practically impossible
Yes.
to implement that, for example, in the judiciary, because there aren't enough women in relation to men at those senior levels, and so therefore it is for progressive realization.
Okay.
Because remember, some rights in the Bill of Rights are for progressive realization, such as those the socio-economic rights.
Yeah,
So the
and
first
you know,
case.
yeah. So,
Yes.
so I mean, I'm going to stop. I'm going to intervene there.
Yes.
Because you see, I think people who are not familiar with law, they need to realize that particular line, progressive implementation, is a very critical line, because it means that a ruling can be, you know, something can be passed on because there is that allowance for progressive. In future, we will be able to comply, but we can live with what we have right now. That's what that means, isn't it?
Yes, but now the controversy, Pastor Gigi, was this. It was very clear, for progressive implementation, it was very clear the socio-economic rights,
Yes.
i.e. the rights to, you know, the right to food, the right to shelter, and all those were clearly stated for progressive implementation.
Yes.
And these other ones were not stated for progressive
Oh, okay.
implementation.
So there was an
so
argument.
so an interpretation, a question of interpretation then arose.
Okay.
And the judges, in their wisdom at the time,
Yeah.
decided that even though that was not said at the time,
Yeah.
but that this particular thing was for progressive.
Okay.
We then had a similar question that went to the court, where the Attorney General, you know, sought an interpretation of at the Court of Appeal, that what does this mean with respect to elective positions?
Okay.
Same issue, yeah.
Yes.
That now we're heading to the elections, and you know, we haven't attained this not more than
Gender
2/3.
parity, yeah,
what
yeah.
happens?
Yes.
And I think Pastor Gigi, you're aware, as well as the viewers are aware, about the advisory opinion that was given by Justice Maraga
Yes.
to the President to dissolve Parliament.
Yes.
I believe it was last year.
Yeah.
Because Parliament has not achieved the not more than 2/3, despite a court decision in 2015 requiring that it ought to have been made possible by
And by the way, it was a registration. There was a legislative requirement in the list of registrations. Was there a legislative requirement to input kind of like a law to mandate that the 2/3 or something?
Yes,
within the implementation framework.
No, not within the implementation framework, but then the court.
Yes.
When you remember, earlier on we've talked about the appointive position was taken to court.
Yes.
Then now the elective one came at election time.
Yes.
So an interpretation was also sought from the court, which also said that that one will be progressively realized. However,
Yeah.
that Parliament must make a law
Yes.
by 2015
Yeah.
to actually make it possible to achieve the not more than 2/3. That law was never made.
Yeah, and
Has never been
and
passed.
that was the reason for
Yes.
Justice Maraga's
Yes.
letter.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Which up to date has not
Has
been
not yet
honored.
been implemented.
And
Yes.
I guess maybe that's why we have this issue of skepticism. Maybe we can speak into that now. Especially young people, you know, so you see, I know we can't talk of all the institutions. So we've talked about the Gender and Equality Commission. We've talked about the Kenya Human Rights Commission, chaired by one Professor Makau Mutua. Is he still the chair? Or is
No,
he?
Professor Makau Mutua is the chair of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. There's a difference between the Kenya National Human Rights Commission and the Kenya Human Rights Commission.
Oh, okay.
That one was being chaired by Madam Kagweria Bogori, but I think their terms have come to an end, and I think these are some of the positions that the president advertised recently.
Oh, okay.
I think last week, yes.
Oh, okay. Very good. So let's actually now then ask ourselves, given that background, and of course there are still so many things that have been happening anyway since the 2010. This is the 11th year. Where is the skepticism coming from? Do you think it has to do with, some of those, for example, some of those, like that famous instructions by, is it an instruction or Maraga writes to the president and says, dissolve parliament, and he doesn't do it. So is that where the trouble is?
To be quite honest, Pastor Gigi, one of the things I have appreciated about the pandemic is that it has come with, of course, terrible consequences because of people losing their loved ones.
Yes.
But it has also educated us a lot. Remember when the corona, first of all, became, well known in 2010, we had to stay at home because of the lockdowns, the 2020, yes.
Yes.
We had to stay home because of the lockdowns. And I had the opportunity to now be able to increase my view to the left and to the right of what is happening on television. And I came across certain programs on television. And so I saw for the first time programs that bring the youth, that target the youth.
Yes.
In some of our TV stations. And I listened to them, and I really wondered whether are we in the same country, or how did I not know that things have come to this level? In the sense that the language that the young people spoke was a language that was not familiar to me. And so I took an interest to continue to watch these programs where the young people came to. And I realized that one of the most significant things that has happened in our country is young people feeling that they are not reached by our state institutions and the leadership of the country at different levels.
Yes.
The kind of, let's say, stratifications in our society. There is the rich, there is the poor.
Yes.
There is the urban, there is the rural. There is the educated, the so-called educated, there is the so-called less educated, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
With all these variations, and of course, older people, speaking a language and, having beliefs or, being exposed to things that are very different from the pressures of young people.
Yes.
Young people who are trying to eke a living or who have been born in situations or circumstances of poverty, etc., and what they're trying to do to lift themselves up. So I found that there's a very, very significant difference between what our laws, what our laws are making preparations for, and what leaders are actually working towards, and what the youth are actually
looking
at.
So it is actually a very serious divide.
A big disjunction, Pastor Gigi.
These two, it's like two mountains, not speaking to each other.
Absolutely.
So say, for example, and we could say we might even put ourselves, we in our generation can understand what's going on up there. We've watched the dramas of the constitutional making and all that. So we kind of have an idea of the national trajectory and what aspirations are there and the problem we are solving. And in fact, we are solving very old problems. So we are very, very busy. Even right now, for example, the BBI was another attempt at solving some very old old.
That young people don't know anything
don't
about.
care.
In fact, many of the, like if you look at, for example, the generation of our leadership,
Yes.
young people have been born when some of these people in our leadership
Yes.
have been there.
Yes.
And others don't know the history of that leadership.
Exactly.
They've been born and found you there.
Yes.
They don't know the things you did in the 60s or the 70s for this country, and so they don't identify with that.
Absolutely.
And you at the top there,
Yes.
or the leadership, whether it's at the county level or at the national level,
Yeah.
don't know, for example, that drugs, and the peer pressure that people face with issues to do with sexuality, or things to do with alcohol, or things to do with, just, the poverty that is, biting.
Yes.
They don't identify with those issues, and how those issues play a very big role in the way that a young person grows.
Exactly.
So, for example, when you listen to, like, as I watched these programs, when you listen to the aspirations of the young people in these programs
Yes.
on television,
Yes.
Essentially young people will say, so they're asked, so what do you do?
Yeah.
And they will say that they're musicians, they do spoken word, they're poets, they're DJs, and they're these sorts of things. And so I sat down and I thought to myself, but I've never seen these people, or where are their releases? Where are their songs that I don't see?
Yes.
How comes that we've never come across you?
Yes.
If you are, good at this and this, so it means that person who says that they are a singer, a poet, and so forth and so on, perhaps if given support.
Yes.
So you see, you're giving support to things which young people are not interested in,
Yes.
or cannot do that well. So I really felt, Pastor Gigi,
Yeah.
that there needs to be discussions between the generations, service providers at the county level and the national government.
Yes.
There needs to be more engagement with young people,
Right.
to know what is it in your generation and in your time that you want to do, or that what's preventing you from. In our time, Pastor,
Yeah.
there was only one way. You make it in school,
Yes.
or you don't make it.
Right.
There wasn't the option for drama school, theater,
DJ.
arts, music. How
MC.
dare you tell your parents you want to be a DJ?
Or an MC.
How can you? that is something you can't do that.
Yes.
In our generation, in our time,
Yes.
those were simply not options. In fact, we were coming from, let's say, the post-colonial period,
Yeah.
where now the only way for you to make it was to go to school, and you make it.
Yes.
But today there are options.
Yes.
Because the fact of the matter is that jobs are limited.
Jobs are limited.
The possible number of jobs in the public service, civil service, they are limited.
but
Not everybody will be
They have been
absorbed.
growing very slowly.
Yes, not everybody will be absorbed. So what do you do with now young people? Because our country, I think, has been very aggressive
Yes.
in pursuing an education, a trajectory where in our country many people go to school.
Yes.
At the formative
Yes.
levels.
Literacy levels
Exactly.
are very high.
Those who go to primary school, those
Yes.
who transition on to secondary school,
Yes.
where do they go? Because after secondary school, where do they go?
We are churning a lot of we're churning a lot of young people
Yes.
off high schools. And that's a reasonable level of literacy. I mean, these are guys who can survive.
And even
everywhere.
university graduates, they are
and
coming
then
out in their numbers.
Absolutely.
Where do they go?
Yeah, actually, like this year, I think this year the whole system has, I think, absorbed about, was it 125,000? We have a total population of almost 250,000.
Look at that.
People in universities in this country, and we're churning out like 100,000 out of the universities every year. So that's a very huge number of very highly qualified Kenyans. So, yeah.
Why do we see them on the streets holding placards, asking for a job, for anything, literally anything to do?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, Pastor, is that...
So I like that what you have identified, the gap in terms of where the older generation is seeing the nation going, and when you listen to the young people, what their aspirations are. Those are two different things. These guys, all they want is to survive, find their place in this rapidly developing economy, while leaders are still thinking of solving age-old grievances, leadership grievances. Or we want enough people in that, at the top. We want that presidential, position to be spread out. That kind of thing, like the BBI narrative. So those two things are not in tandem.
So in fact, Pastor, I agree with you. And you see, now when you get money, for example, at the county level, even at the ward level,
Yes.
where do you put that money? You know,
Yes.
to what do you put that money? You see, a young person who wants to grow their talent in boxing
Yes.
needs a boxing rink.
Okay.
A good boxing rink in your neighborhood,
Right.
where you can go and do your practice. And you need good mentors.
Yes.
A young person who wants to do hairdressing and do it well
Yes.
needs a place where they can actually find models or role models, or a good place where they can be able to train from.
Yes.
A person who wants to be a musician. You know, those are the things now, when you see resource allocation, for example, at the county or national government, where is money allocated for those sorts of things? Because we have realized
Yes.
that there aren't enough spaces in employment. There aren't enough spaces all around
Yes.
to absorb everybody that is coming out of our institutions.
Absolutely.
So therefore you'll find a young person thinking, I have a talent in this, or I could have done that if not for the biting poverty. Because you remember, Pastor, Nairobi, when at independence, in the estates, in the Jericho, Jericho, Jerusalem, they had social halls.
Yes.
Where people could be able to go and do this, that, and the other. You know, there was a playground. Now playgrounds have gone. You know, amenities, there are no amenities.
The social halls are
Yes,
in very,
yes.
very dire, very dilapidated,
Yes.
absolutely useless,
Pitches,
structures.
courts, places where young people could hone their skills in football. So now that there is, when I go to the local pitch,
Yeah.
in my estate,
Yes.
to see if I can play foot. No, I can't. There's the benches are broken. There are no balls. There's nothing. So what do we end up doing as young people? We end up sitting together talking. We start taking drugs, taking drink, because where do we go?
Absolutely. So I like that. So there is a issue of lack of a conversation between the generations changing. So generations are pursuing different goals, and then there is the issue of the employment. Solution, real solution. Then there is an issue of resources.
Yes.
Like the allocation and distribution of
Yes.
resources at the lowest level possible. So that's a major thing. What's the role of corruption? Because I think that's the other thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but my thinking, there is something, this constant discussion around corruption. Do you think that's a part of it?
Definitely. Corruption, what it has done is stolen the future of generations to come. Stolen the future of generations to come. If we use, the statement that was made by His Excellency the President, to the effect that on a daily basis 2 billion is pilfered, is stolen.
Yeah.
That's an exponential amount of money if you look at it in the, on the basis of a week,
All
a
right.
month, a year.
Yes.
Then look at the major scandals we've had over time.
That's about 700 billion of our hard-earned taxpayers' money.
In fact,
Pilferage.
yeah.
Annually.
So you see, Pastor, if we were not corrupt, because I saw in the press yesterday,
Yes.
someone talking about Dubai and talking about how it has made, it's really gone ahead. And of course, Kenyans reacted and said, no, but you can't compare Kenya with Dubai that is using oil money to do what it's doing. But then somebody else said, no, they only use 5% of oil money, but what they do is they do not steal.
The balance.
They do not steal anything from public service. So whatever monies are there are used for. So if only we could be able to seal the gaps in corruption,
Yes.
both at the highest levels to the lowest levels, because corruption is not only at the highest levels,
yeah,
it is
it's-
at the lowest levels as well.
Absolutely.
If those gaps in corruption could be sealed, we're saying that already there's money that can, like for example, if we just go by, that 2 billion, example.
Yeah.
Today, 2 billion
Yeah.
can be allocated, against the 47 counties.
Yes.
I'm not, as I said, Pastor, before, I'm not good in math, so I don't know if you can work that one out.
Yeah. No.
2
2
billion
times
in 47 counties.
That's 94 billion only. And each county has 2 billion. And 2 billion is a lot of money, by the way.
So there's a lot of
It can do a
life-changing-
whole
yes.
football stadium for each county.
Look at that. You could literally bring water.
Yes.
That makes our mothers and daughters go very long distances. You could bring water nearby.
So you can solve, for example, you can pump in maybe a quarter of it in entertainment.
Yes.
Stadiums,
Yes.
ports, and what have
Yes.
you. Then you can pump another quarter in water, critical resource,
Yes.
especially some of the counties that are really challenged.
Yes.
And then you could pump some
Income generating activities.
income generating activities, health
during this pandemic.
and health. And for example, you know, like again, what you're describing, and we don't want just to go into a morning party here.
Yes.
But we're saying that I think COVID has just revealed the underbelly of the situation in our health system, that it's absolutely weak, poorly funded, and that's a major area of focus.
Absolutely. And there have been missteps along the way. You remember the medical equipment services, which was, I think, to me, well intended
Yes.
to ensure that every county has got some certain core equipment.
Yes.
Dialysis machines. It has got equipment that can be able to,
I think scanning
you know,
machines.
all these.
Yeah.
Isn't that a noble thing to have every county having this? But then to know that actually this is not what's happening on the ground
Yes.
because of a scandal that, you know, erupted because of that.
Yes.
What about the drugs that are required? What about the story that we had of you know, drugs for HIV and AIDS patients, you know, at the port, and those drugs not being released by
And
USAID,
they expired
and so
at the
forth and
port.
so on.
Yeah.
Pastor, as you said, this is not a morning you know, party, but it's to say
Yes.
that one immediate thing that could happen if the loopholes in corruption were sealed
Yes.
is that those resources could then be reallocated and for them to make the difference in the lives of people.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking about you know, for example, like I look at Europe,
Yeah.
you can decide on 10 things every county must have.
Yeah.
One for the youth, that is,
Yes.
which is that you must have a football pitch, you must have a boxing rink, you must have a you know, a basketball pitch, you must have you know, this, that, and the other.
Yes.
Things which young people would put their talent to, would give their time to. And what time do you have to smoke weed if you have been practicing all day long?
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and you have an idea like Eliud Kipchoge that you're going for matches abroad and you possibly could win. Why Eliud Kipchoge doesn't have time for?
Absolutely,
You know,
it does not have. And unfortunately, Dr. Linda, we've run out of time. And but I think we've tried to answer that very big question. And I like what you're saying. There's that gap. You know, there is a gap. There is something we are missing if we don't look hard enough. And I like what you've said about COVID kind of having been a moment of reflection. It's provided us a kind of like, we slowed down and checked, and we saw, you know, all the things that we are missing within the conversation. Absolutely. Okay, so since we are out of time, I think
Pastor, I know we're out of time. I just want to say one thing to young people.
Yes.
Regarding the skepticism issue.
Yes.
Despite being skeptical
Yeah.
about, for example, the institutions that we have, they are the ones we have.
Yes.
And so far, they have ensured that we go from day to day. They're not perfect.
Yes.
There's a lot that needs to be done to remedy them.
Yes.
But they are what we have, and that they've avoided us from falling into the situation that many countries in Africa have fallen into, regressed into, for example, civil wars
Yes.
and the rest. So what we need to do is to strengthen our institutions going forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's very well said and summarized. And thank you so much, Dr. Linda, for coming on this show. I think we are much better off from your insights and the vast experience. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we had for you on this episode of the Gigi Report. I believe you've learned something. May the Lord bless you so much. We will see you another day, and please stay tuned all the time. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place. God bless you. This is your host, Godfrey Gichuki. Bye. See you another day.